This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.
Hey, everybody, Keith Engel for TGI Sports Talk College Football Huddle. Our little marching band music coming in. We're right here live on Northeast Streaming Sports Network. Welcome, everybody. Guys, I'll remind you, if I share this to your group, you're going to get some great content, great relevant content. So all you SEC fans, all you Notre Dame fans, all you college football fans in general, please check us out. Like the show, share the show, and invite your friends to like TGI Sports Talk so we can grow this nation as we have up until now. You've done a great job helping me do that. As have my great guests and some of my great co-hosts and collaborators like Mark Mancini, who I'll have on here in just a second from Mancini Media. I also have tonight Lary Sorensen, who we've had on a couple of times, the color analyst for Wake Forest football, former Major League Baseball pitcher, by the way. He'll be on at 7:45-ish. We'll talk about Wake's great start and also all the craziness going on in the ACC. Crazy September, guys. September chaos. Is it going to continue into October? Let's find out. Lots of ups and downs last weekend, depending on who you're rooting for. The AP poll is, except for the two top spots, seems like to be a very fluid situation from week to week. And it seems like this will be an ongoing theme throughout the season, and we'll find out how that goes. But right now, let's welcome in our co-host tonight. And consistently now on this show, Mark Mancini.
How are you, brother, man? This is the show that's sweeping the country, man. I'm so proud to be a part of it, man.
Where are you? At the pool? Where are you?
Well, you know what's happening right now. My wife's doing all the wash.
So you got no clothes on?
No, I got the clothes on. I just got the shirt off. So
all right, I want to make sure you got pants on. I got blocks once. I don't need it again.
No, I got the pants on, definitely. But I told my wife, next time you got to do the wash, you got to make sure I can grab something. But she's in the room, so I'm downstairs again, pretty much trying to get this show going, man, and keep this thing on a PG type of a format.
Well, we got to have that. I mean, we can't be going totally over the edge here. So anyway, welcome aboard tonight. Gosh, what it seems like when things can't get any crazier in college football, they get crazier and crazier. Last week, more of the same, more upheaval. I mean, Clemson continues to struggle. Notre Dame wins big, but did they really win big? Because their offense didn't look all that great. I'm not sure how much that game really helped them. Arkansas obviously looked good. Lots of stuff to talk about from last week's game. So why don't we get started there, Mark? As far as our conversation tonight, what were your big takeaways? And I'll climb aboard here.
Well, I'll tell you the big takeaway is UCLA is like a Bruce Springsteen song. We talked about that. They look like world beaters against LSU and lay an egg against Fresno State, being favored by over 20. And then they go up and they beat Stanford. So I can't quite figure out what's going there. The other thing is keep your eyes on the Longhorns, man. 3-1. I think Sarkisian's starting to lay some groundwork there. It's going to take a while, but keep your eyes on the Longhorns. And, boy, if you're going to send a team like New Hampshire to Pittsburgh, don't let them get crushed 77-7.
Well, that was your dead solid lock last week. And you were way out on a limb on that one, I got to tell you.
Yeah, that was another one. And I know you had Rutgers almost pulling one.
I did say that
that was an interesting one. North Carolina, Clemson, we talked about that game. And, the other one that just, seems to work in everybody's favor is, I'll tell you one thing, USC, this is going to be an interesting squad going forward. I can't quite put my finger on this team.
We'll get to Rick's comment here a little bit. He says your pro picks are doing better than your college picks, and we'll talk about Rick. We'll
it
get
was funny. I was just talking about, we were doing a practice run in Philly on WWDB, and we were talking about that I owe Rick some cheesesteaks. So when we debut out there in a few weeks, boy, Rick's going to come and collect them.
Maybe we just wait till the end of the season. You buy him a franchise out there.
Try to work something with Gino or Paps in the city of brotherly love.
I agree. Listen, before Rick had some questions about this week's games, we'll get into that, Rick, a little bit. We're definitely going to talk about that Georgia-Arkansas games because I got some strong opinions there, and Notre Dame's got a big game too. Well, I want to finish up with a couple of games from this week. We talked about Clemson just now. We said Clemson, they're for all intents and purposes, they're out of the playoff picture. They wouldn't even be ranked. Again, if it wasn't for preseason rankings, Mark, Clemson wouldn't even be ranked right now. I think they're 25th in the coaches poll. With the way they played against Georgia, the lack of offense against Georgia Tech, and then just flat out getting beat. I think we both said they got to be careful at North Carolina State, and it came to fruition. They actually got beat. I mean, it's Clemson and the ACC, and I'll have Lary Sorensen on later. I know you'll probably be gone or have to be leaving shortly after he jumps in, but is the ACC got any chance to have a representative in this playoff?
Well, I thought it was going to be Pitt, my city, till they laid an egg against Western Michigan. I mean, we'll find out this week against Georgia Tech and the Yellow Jackets, but it's been a topsy-turvy thing when you look at it. Boy, how the mighty have fallen with Clemson and Dabo Sweeney. I mean, even Trevor Lawrence is having a rough go of it in the pros with the Jacksonville Jaguars. And Etney, it was out for the year there. So a couple of Clemson guys. But, yeah, it's carried over. And, when I look at Clemson, the first thing I think of is, last year after, what they did the year before was LSU. They had to go through some growing pains. So, Clemson they're a mirror image of LSU last year in trying to recover. Yeah,
and LSU started to bounce back pretty decently. I mean, they won again last week against Mississippi State. They're just outside the poll, I believe. So they could creep back in here. A couple other the Notre Dame, the takeaway from the Notre Dame game, if I'm a Notre Dame fan, I don't know how excited I am because they looked like they were going to get beat for 3.5 quarters, and all of a sudden, things just fell apart for Wisconsin and their offense. I don't know what to take away from this Notre Dame game last week. I really don't.
I think, Kelly's been, hanging under the radar there. He's the winningest coach in Notre Dame history without, a title behind him. So, I mean, that's an albatross. We heard that when the days of, Peyton Manning shattering records in the NFL and couldn't win a Super Bowl. So I don't know how soon it's going to come for Notre Dame to be a threat. I've looked at Notre Dame as, a big hype machine. They talk about it. They sell a lot of tickets. They travel well. They do good on TV and everything. And then these big games come up and, what have you done for me lately? A lot of great players, quarterbacks have come out of that school and stuff. But, boy, it's been a long time since Notre Dame has won something, wouldn't you say?
Yeah, I would say it's been since Lou Holtz in like 1988, if I'm not mistaken. That's that's a long time for anybody. It's an eternity for Notre Dame, that's for sure. My big surprise, and I did pick them and I did bet them actually, was Arkansas. Arkansas looked really, really good. Their defense was really good. A&M, maybe they're a little overrated because their offense is not very good. They got some problems at quarterback, but look at Arkansas is 4-0. They've now beaten Texas and Texas A&M. They own the state of Texas, and they got a huge game coming up this week against Georgia. So this will be a very interesting game. Outside of Clemson, which we know is struggling, Georgia hasn't really played anybody, but they're putting up tons of points with that offense that I was kind of belittling in week 1.
Well, Arkansas is a surprise, and you're right. The other surprises out here is BYU. Nobody saw this thing coming. And BYU is simply amazing. I mean, we thought this was going to be a punching bag. Everybody talked about everybody else. And the fact, well, nobody saw the BYU guys coming.
No, BYU. We're going to talk about that in a second. We're going to talk about who we think the best of that group of five is, whether it's Cincinnati, BYU, and SMU is playing great. We'll talk about that in a second. Just to wrap up last week's games, there was a couple other things. Baylor's now 4-0 after beating Iowa State, who I was very high on the at the beginning of the year. Baylor seems to have rebounded from a tough year last year. Michigan State, still not sure what to make of them. I mean, they're undefeated, but Nebraska keeps playing these teams tough all of a sudden, and maybe they're finding an identity, but they're not finding a way to win.
Yeah, Nebraska played Oklahoma pretty darn tough.
They did.
And boy, that brought back memories. I mean, 50 years ago, the classic with Oklahoma and Nebraska, defense against the offense there. I mean, that was college football in a heyday. Yeah. And, that's when you just roll out the Express and bring all those guys back, and some of the guys that played for both universities. Man, oh man, I miss that rivalry as much as I miss the Penn State Pitt rivalry. I mean, they brought that back a little, but those things were classics the day after Thanksgiving.
Good job. Rick's had a couple of comments here. He doesn't think anybody from the ACC will make it. He wants to see what Lary says, and he's also knocking my little Arkansas team. We'll talk about that in a few minutes, Rick, when we get to this week's games. You'd mentioned Oklahoma, and I guess I'll wrap up last week's conversation with they struggled again at home against West Virginia. West Virginia is not a bad football team, but if Oklahoma is one of the three best teams in the country, you can't be winning by 3 at home to West Virginia. You just got to be better than that.
Well, not only that, and you start ranking these teams. I think the big surprise is what Penn State's doing. I mean, I didn't think Penn State was going to be that juggernaut, but boy, Penn State is, they've moved up the ladder real quick, and and like the surprise you had out here with UCLA. I mean, finally Chip Kelly's building it the way he wanted to build it. We'll see if it keeps going. I don't think it's going to keep going this Saturday night against Arizona State, because I think Herm Edwards and those boys are coming into the Rose Bowl and going to saddle them with the loss.
That's a huge game for both those teams. If they have aspirations, either one of them get into that championship game against most likely Oregon.
Yeah.
This is a must win for both of them. I was impressed with the way UCLA rebounded last week. It's not easy to go to Stanford. They're not at the top of their where their program's been, Stanford, but they're still a good football team and a very well coached football team. So I thought that was a good bounce back for UCLA.
Well, and Charbonneau, I really like that kid a lot, man. He's a moose, man. He really is. I mean, and what UCLA's done, I mean, they hit you, man. And, I watched a few of their games. I mean, they had the slugfest with Fresno State, but I want to see a little bit more consistency out of UCLA. I've seen this dog and pony show for years. I mean, they take out a top 10 school or a school that was, on the top for quite a while, and then they lay an egg the following week. If they beat Arizona State this week, now you're starting to make me a believer with the Bruins. But I don't know. I'm still high on Herm Edwards and the Devils. I like their quarterback there, and they start shaking off that loss from BYU and stuff. We'll see what these guys are made out of.
Agreed. Let's shift gears a little bit. So, obviously, we'll get into this coming week's games here in a second. I was looking at the AP poll, or the coaches poll, again. And, the polls are just so, I don't know what to make of them, because this kind of is a segue into I want to talk about who are the best of these group of 5 teams, right? So for those of you who get confused by that term, it's basically teams that aren't in Power 5 conferences. So anybody who's not in the ACC, the SEC, the Big 10, the Big 12, and the Pac-12, that's the group of 5. And Cincinnati, who's been right now the favorite out of that group, again get past. They're in the coaches poll. They're stuck at number 8. And so far this year, Oregon, Iowa, Penn State, and now Notre Dame have all blown by them in a poll, and all they've done is win all their games and win them all pretty convincingly. So these teams don't get the love that they deserve.
Well, I think the real key you got to really ask yourself here and ask the committee: is there anybody that can challenge Alabama here? and that's it. I think it's Alabama, and then you're trying to find 3 other teams to fit in this fatal 4-way. Georgia, Oregon, we saw Ohio State drop big. Who is going to be this other team that is going to jump in this? Is it Penn State? I mean, is it Cincinnati? When you start to bring in Cincinnati, when you start to bring a BYU in here now you're looking at squads and TV networks that aren't, they're saying to themselves, well, even though, some of these other schools like BYU and, Cincinnati are better than the Michigans and everything, we get them in a big fatal 4-way here. Do they travel well? Do they, are they going to, it's not big marquee TV. We need to get the Michigans in here. We need to get the big schools in here. So that's going to be the real thing here. And I think what you're going to see is it's going to be like we saw last year. Did Ohio State deserve to be in there? No. But we weren't going to bring in Coastal Carolina and all these other squads in here because we knew they couldn't travel well and it wasn't going to be big for TV. People weren't going to watch that. So that is going to be the big question. Alabama's going to be there. Alabama can crush the board here. But who's going to be after Alabama?
I don't know if I agree that the Coastal Carolinas of the world would be bad TV matchups, because I think look at the NCAA tournament in basketball. People like to watch the underdogs beat the top guys. They just love it. And the NCAA could do worse than having a Coastal Carolina playing Alabama in that first round of a 12 or 16 team tournament. I mean, does it matter if they get blown out or Notre Dame gets blown out? I mean, they'll get better ratings for Carolina.
I think when, in more or less growing up out here in Los Angeles, we always used to see the Michigans and the Ohio States come out here, run roughshod through their conference and get railroaded by the Washingtons, the USCs, and UCLAs on New Year's Day.
Yeah.
But they would travel well out here, and people, the talk out here was, God, if we're not getting Michigan and Ohio State, or Illinois, we started getting a Northwestern out here to travel out here, or one of those schools. Are they gonna really travel as much as the big schools do? And that was always the talk coming out here.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. So now catapult that into the fatal 4-way here. And the TV networks, we know the Notre Dames, we know the Ohio States. We know these guys could be hype trains sometimes. In more ways than one, but we know if we put them on TV, everybody's going to watch them because these are the teams we love to hate, or we hate to love.
Well, yeah, all the better. Put Alabama on against Coastal Carolina. These teams need to put these teams on their schedules, by the way.
Right.
Stop, Pittsburghs of the world. Pittsburgh, I'll pick on them only because they played New Hampshire, beat them 77-7. I know why New Hampshire does it. They do it for the paycheck. They don't care. They're going to go down there and get their asses whooped, and they know it. But I want to see these Power 5 schools play Coastal Carolina and play Cincinnati. And good for Indiana for putting Cincinnati on their schedule. Good for Notre Dame for putting Cincinnati on their schedule. We're going to find out a lot about Cincinnati and Notre Dame this week, I think.
Well, and not only that, keep your eyes on, Ole Miss. Ole Miss is, when you look at some of these SEC teams, I mean, they don't stay down too long. And that's the thing. And the talk out here, in the Pac-12 is you put these games on late at night. Nobody back east is staying up till 2 a.m. to watch a conclusion of a game. I think this week now, if I'm not mistaken, it's going to be Arizona State and UCLA at like 7:30 at the Rose Bowl. By the time this thing ends, it's 1 o'clock, 1:30 in the morning back there. If you're trying to showcase your conference, by golly, get them on early in the morning or something,
Well, again, then you throw away the whole West Coast, but
right.
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Second, let's get back to these Group of 5 teams again. In my mind, you've got 6 really good teams. Is it 5 or 6? 6, 5. I've got written down. You may have somebody I got. Cincinnati's there and BYU. They're the 2 class of the Group of 5s in my mind. BYU's already beaten 3 Power 5 teams or Power 5 conference teams this year, all from the Pac-12 South, but still. Cincinnati, we know what they've done. They're going to prove their mettle this week, and they're going to go in South Bend, Indiana, and be favored in this game, which is amazing to me.
Yeah, it really is. And I would be a bit surprised if they come out there and punch the Irish in the mouth and,
Yeah.
hop on the bus and fly back to the Queen City.
Yeah, I think they may win this game myself,
Yeah,
and we'll talk in that in
I
a
got
second.
them.
Coastal Carolina, SMU, who's undefeated and playing really good football.
Wow.
They beat their
Is Craig James and Eric Dickerson running the ball there?
They may be back. The Pony Express may be back. They're playing some great football. Sonny
Wow.
Dykes, that's one of the most underrated teams in the country, along with Fresno State, who kind of got in a little trap situation Friday night, but they escaped with an 8-point win. That team has only got one loss at Oregon by a touchdown, right?
Yeah,
Or maybe
the Bulldogs are tough. I mean, it reminds me of a few years ago, that Bulldog team that was, a powerhouse. I'm trying to think if it was Carr quarterbacking them.
Derek Carr played quarterback there.
Yeah, I think it was that year, and they were a tough squad back then, and they were up there for a couple of years, and they kind of slipped a little. But yeah, the Bulldogs, they're putting a bite back there in Fresno.
They had a good team even a bunch of years before that when his brother David Carr played quarterback for Fresno State. So they've had some really good teams. Now, it's time for they're starting to get some love. These teams are all ranked that I mentioned, except for, I think, SMU. I think they've all got into the coaches poll here.
Right.
And by the way, guys, I've used the coaches poll up until now just because I want something consistent. And, I know the coaches don't get to see all the games, but whatever. Once the ratings come out for the playoff, that's the rankings we'll look at, because they're the ones that are going to matter. We'll get those here, probably the first ones, I think, in a week or two. So I think that'll be interesting as well. Let me just, before we move on
I'll
here.
tell you, while you're doing that, boy, what's happened to the Washington Huskies, man? Unbelievable how they've fallen off the wagon train.
Oh, gosh, and Mickey Delaney's with us from the state of Washington. He roots for in Washington State, and I think they're both Washington State actually might have won last week, and I can't remember. But it actually brings up a good point. USC went up there and beat Washington State. Then they come back and they get waxed again last week.
Yeah. USC is just unbelievable. I mean, and they got a tough road to hoe here too. They got Notre Dame. They get UCLA. I mean, there's some games here. I don't know what they're going to do with USC. It's going to be a kumbaya till the end of the year. And then we'll find out what USC does. Do they open up their wallet, or do they go out there and get a FedEx driver to take the coaching reins?
Yeah, James Lill, I'm not sure if you're
I'm seeing that. Right,
we'll see.
Southern Miss.
When we get into next week's games, we'll take it. We'll give you we'll pick a winner in that game just for you, James, because you may be the only guy in the country who cares. But if you like those teams, I'm really not belittling them. Let's see what else we got. Oregon don't really play anybody. You know what? It's true, but that's partly because of the Pac-12 being as weak as it's been. So that's why we
3 wins
losing that hurts them, right?
Yeah, 3 wins. You beat Fresno State. You go to take out Ohio State and Columbus, and then you come back and you get everybody in the stadium that paid $300 and you whack Stony Brook. How do you get Stony Brook on your schedule in Eugene?
I have no idea. But again, write the check and they will come.
Yeah.
Yes, Rick, we're both going to be on Cincinnati, I think, when we make that pick, which we'll do in a second. Anthony Price, we're going to get to that Maryland. By the way, this Maryland, I didn't know if Maryland be 4-0, but I said before the season that this team was going to be underrated with the baby Tua there playing quarterback, and they've got a big game against Iowa this weekend. So that's going to be an interesting pick for us as well. One more thing I want to do before we get into that. Let's talk about we've talked about the group of 5. Let's talk about the power conferences. So if I'm going to rank these conferences now, let's have a quick conversation about this. SEC is obviously number 1, without a doubt. I mean, you've got a bunch of teams that are going to be in contention for these 4 playoff spots, depending on how some big games this weekend. Ole Miss and Alabama, Georgia and Arkansas, to name 2. They're obviously number 1. But once you get past that, I have a hard time coming up with 2, 3, and 4. 5 is easy for me. It's the Pac-12. But I have trouble ranking the ACC. I guess would be probably 4th in my mind,
Right.
and then the Big 10, I guess, is 12, and I guess I got to put the Big 12 3. But the Big 12 isn't even that strong in my mind right now. So
no, I think you got to look at it. The ACC, as painful as it say, they're probably the worst right now because they're really trying to find themselves. And Clemson dominated that one for quite a while, and now the mighty have fallen, and now it's a pick 'em, and that's the thing here. But I'll tell you one thing: until these power conferences come up and try to give the SEC a run for their money, I think it's going to be total domination for probably the next 5 years, with the SC dominating that number 1 position.
yeah, it's going to be hard.
Look at Alabama, for instance. All the guys they lost to the NFL this year, and they lost a lot of guys. And look what they're doing. I mean, it's like an influx of a well-oiled machine. I mean, They don't miss a beat. It's like the guys that graduate, the next guys come right in. It's like the seniors are out. Here come the juniors.
Yeah.
The juniors are, ready to take the reins. We're going to prepare the sophomores and then the freshmen. I mean, it's unbelievable in Alabama.
I mean, you almost need a couple of these other and I don't want to see this by any means because I'm more of a traditionalist and want to see the regional rivalries. I want the conferences back the way they were. It'll never happen. But I mean, for the Pac-12 and the Big 12 to stay competitive with the SECs of the world, you almost need to combine the conferences to have some kind of chance to be that competitive year in and year out.
Well, let's not kid ourselves. When we look at the Pac-12, it's been 18 years since USC has won a national title, and ever since SC, only Oregon's kind of been in the mix here, and they've been in the fatal 4-way, and they got bounced by Ohio State and thrashed. But other than those 2 schools, who else has come out of there and they had a cup of coffee? Maybe Stanford, maybe Washington that one year where they kept it close against Alabama. I believe that game was in New Orleans or Georgia. But other than those 4 schools, what's been happening with that conference?
Yeah. I mean, I don't even know that you couldn't see possibly, depending on how things fall, that you could see 3 teams come out of the SEC in the playoff. I got to look at the scenarios, and obviously we got to wait for the records in a couple more weeks as these teams play each other.
Right.
But the way the Big Ten's already lost, Ohio State, in my mind, is probably toast unless they run the table or are very impressive doing it. Iowa maybe, but their offense is probably going to drag down that great defense. I don't see any other teams in the Big Ten with a chance other than those 2. The Pac-12, you got Oregon. I don't think anybody else, UCLA, Arizona State, they can run the table. They're not going to get high enough to get to the top 4. And the Big 12, Oklahoma is they're on the precipice of disaster every week, and they lose a game, they're probably going to fall backwards.
Well, and not only that, I mean, when you look at the Pac-12, I mean, I like the quarterbacks over there, and what you got at UCLA, what you got at SC, what you got at Arizona State. But I don't know. It just seems like they're more interested in the 15-minute car chase type of thing. The flash, the pizzazz. To get in the trenches and to knock them, and it's. I mean, if Alabama had to play one of these schools, and even if it was on the road in a Pac-12 city, I think Alabama would have to be favored by at least 2 touchdowns in any one of those venues.
Yeah. It's just, again, and that's why we got to get this playoff expansion in next week or next year. Next week would be nice, but next year and not 5 years from now, because I'm tired of.
And now you got Texas and Oklahoma coming to the SEC. Wow. Yeah. I mean, the rich just got richer.
Yeah, agreed. But at least when you get to 12 and they say that, the top 6 are going to get buys, and they're going to be the sixth highest conference winning team. So it doesn't have to be. The SEC doesn't even have to be in there. They will be.
Not only that, Keith, when you look at it, you bring Oklahoma into the SEC, travels well.
Yeah.
Texas is a religion down there. Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, you go on and on with these. Georgia. I mean, it's just unbelievable. How are you going to compete? That's why I said for the next 5 years, these guys are just going to totally dominate, and these other schools jump in sooner. Who knows? I mean, it's just going to be a rough shot. I mean, it's going to be David and Goliath. I mean, I can't see anybody competing with them. You're going to have to get some real combined efforts with some of these schools, like what the Pac-12 is doing with the ACC, to even compete. And I don't even know if that's enough.
Well, first of all, right. And I think that Texas-Oklahoma moving will happen sooner than 5 years from now, too. That's liable to happen as soon as next year. And as soon as that happens, the playoff's going to expand, because otherwise the SEC is just going to cannibalize itself and not have, they may hurt themselves in a 14 playoff just because the league's going to be so good. They're going to beat each other up.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And bringing all that, swagger into the SEC, the fan bases are going to be jacked up. I mean, that is just, you could just, as painful as just to say, if you just sat there and watched SEC football every week, that would be just simply unbelievable.
Yeah, I agree. Well, let's jump in as we're getting to 7:31. Let's get to this week's games, because we got to look at the big games and make some observations, and then obviously we need to do our dead solid lock, and don't be surprised if. So to me, the marquee game of the week this week is Arkansas at Georgia. As well as Arkansas has played, you can't. I know Rick Sherlock mentioned. Let's see if he's got something he put up already, but I know they haven't seen a defense as good as Georgia's. I get that. Texas A&M's is pretty good, though, by the way. And I don't think this team needs to score a bunch of points, because I don't think Georgia's seen a defense nearly maybe as good as Arkansas's as well. And Pittman's got this team playing very, very good. You talk about a great fit for a coach. A lifetime assistant coach gets his shot in a perfect situation, and this team believes in him and each other. I think Arkansas's got a puncher's chance here, and I think the line's kind of high. I think the line is double digits. I'm a little surprised. But I do think that they'll have a shot here in this game.
Yeah, that's going to be a dandy, and that Cincinnati Notre Dame game's another one. And boy, I'll tell you, there's two of them right there.
Yeah, agreed. So I'm going to give Arkansas a shot. I think Georgia's going to win this game, but I think Arkansas will be in it all the way myself. We got marquee game 1A is Ole Miss and Alabama.
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Ole Miss is this is going to be an interesting game here, man. And can they beat them? There's always one game. We talked about it what Florida giving Alabama a run there and keeping it close and all that. And Ole Miss likes to keep it close with Alabama, but I don't know, man. I just think Alabama, is just clicking on all cylinders right now, and I got Bama beating Ole Miss. It's going to be a good one, but I still got Bama winning this game.
I think this will be a shootout. I still think Ole Miss's defense is not up to par yet. It's better, but I don't think it's challenging Alabama good. One thing, though, to consider, Lane Kiffin's had a week off. He's had 2 weeks to watch all that film of Florida, and I guarantee he's got some surprises for Coach Saban this week. And that's an interesting rivalry in itself, Kiffin against Saban. They weren't the best of buddies when Kiffin was working for Saban.
Well, Kiffin's not he hasn't burned bridges across the college football fields.
Oh, he's
blew them up. He blew them up wherever he's gone, including USC, where they fired him on the tarmac there in Arizona.
Absolutely. Oh yeah.
But it's tough to beat the master. I mean, these two guys, a lot of people are out there, coaches are playing checkers. These two guys are playing chess. It's going to be an interesting one, but tough to beat the master. And boy, Saban, man, he's gonna, he knows the strengths and weaknesses. He'll figure out Kiffin, and he'll come out ahead in this one.
I think it'll be a must-watch game for sure.
Oh yeah.
While last week was devoid of big matchups, this week has got huge ones. We talked earlier about Cincinnati traveling to Notre Dame. Notre Dame again has got quarterback. I don't know who's going to be the quarterback this week.
Yeah.
But Cincinnati's got a good quarterback. He may have given them some locker room fodder. I read today that some Notre Dame players weren't too happy. The coach at Cincinnati had warned the Cincinnati quarterback and his name is escaping me right now, but to be wary of the crowd noise when he gets to South Bend. And his quarterback's answer was, it won't be loud for long. So you've got to be careful about giving a team that type of Dalton board.
You know what? It reminds me, I don't know what they're drinking or eating in Cincinnati these last couple of weeks, but when Joe Burrow, switching gears here, made the proclamation that they wanted to go into Pittsburgh and take out the Steelers, and that's what they planned on doing, that was bulletin board material. Now we got Cincinnati talking trash going into, South Bend and, telling everybody what they're going to do. So maybe things run in threes here. So we'll find out if they run in twos this week. But I kind of like the bravado, but you got to back it up.
Yeah, I agree. Let's move on to a couple Big Ten games. We got Iowa as visiting, as was brought up earlier by one of our commenters. I think it was can't remember who it was. Talked about how Maryland is a bit of a surprise at 4-0. We got Iowa going in there, going to be a road favorite. This is a tough game because Maryland's playing really, really well. They got a good quarterback. Iowa's having trouble on offense. Could be a tough spot for Iowa.
This was my don't be surprised if Maryland jumps to 5-0. I know Iowa's going to be favored in this one, but let me tell you something. They're a road dog that's favored, but Maryland's clicking, man. And I like the way they're putting it together. I think they come out of this 5-0, and this is my don't be surprised if.
Okay, there you go. So Anthony Price says he's all over Maryland as well. And I guess I'll jump because he's on Louisville, Wake Forest, and I'm going to have Lary Sorensen on, the color analyst for Wake Forest, in a little bit. He is picking Louisville in this game. I believe it'll be at Wake, and Wake should be a small favorite. Louisville's playing some pretty good football. I like Wake Forest, man. They're a very experienced team. They're going to be very experienced next year. I think they had 11 guys back on offense this year and 11 guys back next year. This is a team you got to watch out for in the ACC Coastal.
Yeah, I'll tell you, Wake Forest has been coming on, returnees coming back and everything, and this is what makes that team that much dangerous. When you look at the squad coming back, they get to play together with everybody again. But I've always been intrigued by the Louisville team for a few years now. I like the way they play football and everything. I just, every time you don't see them coming, they keep on coming. And, when they drop some of these games that they're not supposed to drop. But I'll tell you, I've been very impressed with the Louisville Cardinals of late.
Yeah, I said a Coastal. They actually play in the Atlantic. But this will be a battle for first place there. As Clemson has fallen by the wayside, you're actually going to have North Carolina, Louisville, and Wake Forest. Who would have thought fighting out for the top spot, at least at this point, in the Atlantic division of the ACC? So that'll be a big game. BYU, we talked about. They're going to Utah State. Should be a good. Again, we say it should be a good one. Utah State's 3-1. You get those games out there, Saturday, or this one's a Friday night game, I think.
Right.
But gosh, you got to be careful of these teams like Utah State. They bounce up out of nowhere, play well at home.
Well, and it reminds me of Arizona State when they went to BYU, the hostile environment. It gets cold. You don't know what the weather's like, whether it's during the day or at night. Yeah, these are all scary trap games, I call them. Anytime you go to Utah, whether it's the playing the Utes, Utah State, BYU, these are dangerous games, and people, they got to do their homework before they board that plane. They make sure they, dot those I's and cross those T's, because these squads throughout the records, man, they will snap one on you.
A good call. There's some other trap games we got to watch out for here too this week. Oregon traveling to Stanford, who we've already talked about, tough at home, good, well-coached team. getting better. They're only 2-2, but they're played better football since their week 1 loss to Kansas State. Oregon's got to be careful on the road here, I think.
Well, it's going to be another test, but, if you talk to the Oregon Ducks, hey, they looked at the environment they had to handle at Ohio State, the Buckeye Nation, Columbus, and all that. So they figured if they can take out that crowd, well, they can, spring one on Stanford. The question here is, what kind of squad are we going to get from Stanford? Is it the one that came into USC and beat the heck out of them on the road? Or is it going to be the one that played catch-up and succumbed to UCLA? So that's going to be the real question. Crossroads game for Stanford for sure.
For sure. And Oregon's got to win this if they want to keep the Pac-12's chances for a playoff team alive, I think. Yep. Oklahoma travels to Kansas State. Oklahoma's had this their first away game of the year, and they've had plenty of trouble already at home. Any chance you see an upset in this game?
I think Oklahoma, knows what's at stake, and they keep the wheels going, keep that Sooner wagon going, and they pull one out. But yeah, first road game, not playing good football late. He struggled against Nebraska there, but I think they keep it going in Kansas, and they take them out.
Florida travels to Kentucky, a sneaky good Kentucky team, always under Bob Stoops' brother out there in Kentucky. They run the ball really, really well. This is, again, Florida's got to be careful here on the road, I think. Well,
I'll tell you, growing up, I always said, it was for a long time, and you could probably remember it too, I couldn't find a Florida school out of the top 10. You had Florida State, you had Florida, you had Miami. And year in and year out, they were there. And I'm gonna keep this thing going. I like the way Florida played against Alabama. Came up short, but you know what? I like them going and beating Kentucky.
I'm gonna speed past a couple of these games just so we don't run out of time here. I know we got to talk about Arizona State and UCLA because that was our two sleepers at the beginning of the year playing against each other.
Yeah,
must win for both games at UCLA. As you said, probably a 10:30 start here in the East, so I'll be up really late if depending on the line of that game, probably. I like UCLA to continue their winning ways here. I know you like Arizona State, so.
Well, I think with the Arizona State, I like the quarterback, Daniel. I like Herm Edwards. I think he's building something there, and when you look at, how far they've come, he's put them on the map. I mean, and I think, when you looked at them last year, they came out, they opened up at USC, had a lead, fell apart in the last 2 minutes and lost the game. I think coming back here to, Southern California again, they're going to take advantage and win in the Rose Bowl. And you're right. This is a do or die for both these squads. Whoever loses this is going to be really looking up. Whoever wins this is going to sit pretty comfortable until they lose another one. But I like Arizona State and the Sun Devils in this one.
I'll look at some of the rest of these games before I wrap it up, guys. Mark, is there anything else that I haven't touched on either in the top 25 or elsewhere on the schedule that tickles your fancy before we go to our
Well, I like Pitt going and pounding the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets there. So, I mean, make their record 5-1.
I just saw an interesting, I lost it now. Trap. Damn, I lost it.
Trap game?
Yeah, I saw something in the top 25 that caught my eye that I didn't touch on. Michigan getting their first real test maybe against Wisconsin, although Rutgers gave them a test last week. I think Michigan goes to Wisconsin and loses this game.
Well, what kind of Wisconsin team are we going to have? They played pretty good the first, half with Notre Dame. They kept them until that kick just broke their backs, and then they just kind of threw in the towel. Within a matter of 15 minutes, Notre Dame put up 20-something points on them. So we don't know what we're going to get with Wisconsin, but I like Michigan in this game. But I wouldn't be, a bit surprised either if Wisconsin pulled one. Considering, when you lose a game like that, when you played real good football, either you circle the wagons and forget about it, or you sit there and dwell on it. So that's what we're going to get with the Badgers this week.
All right, I'm going to give you my lock. I know you already gave us our surprise. Your surprise. Don't be surprised but you'll have to give it to me again. We're running out of time here. Here's my dead solid lock. Cincinnati goes to South Bend, wins the game, and drops the Irish back probably where they belong. And my don't be surprised if is BC beats Clemson outright at home, and Clemson's woes get worse. I like BC. That's a good football team, well coached.
My lock is Arizona State's going to go to UCLA and beat them. Don't be surprised if Maryland pulls one against Iowa.
That's a good call as well.
Yeah.
And I know you like Cincinnati. Rick Sherlock's a little worried that we're both.
Yeah, we're both on Cincinnati on that one.
Well,
it could be the curse.
I know you got to go get ready to produce the other game. I'll let you go unless you want to stick around. I mean, Larry's not here yet, but if you want to stick, here comes Larry now. If you want a quick introduction, I'll bring Larry in.
Yeah.
And guys, we're going to bring in now Larry. Oops, if I can find the right mouse here. Hang on. Larry Sorensen, a color analyst for Wake Forest, who I know is going to have a big smile on his face today because his Demon Deacons are setting the world on fire. Hi, Larry Sorensen. How are you?
Good evening. Everything's good tonight, Keith. How about yourself? I just left the Dave Clausen show a few minutes ago, and there were a lot of happy faces at the Luke Pizzeria in Winston-Salem.
I'll bet you there are. That's a big car you got there, by the way. You told me you'd be talking to me from your car today. That's a huge car you got.
We made a little adjustment. You know, it's all about being able to move on the fly in this business, as you know.
You got to be flexible, that's for sure. Larry, I wanted to introduce you to Mark Mancini of Mancini Media before Mark had to run. And he wanted to say hi. And sometime I gotta hook you up with Mark because he produces a bunch of shows around the country that I know they'd love to chat with you and get your expertise.
Very nice to meet you, Mark, and feel free to reach out.
Yeah, definitely. I'm getting ready to run, and you probably know her. Patty Blylevin. I'm getting ready to produce her show, Speak Your Mind, ex-wife of Bert Blylevin.
Sure, Bert and I played together a couple of years in Cleveland. Best curveball I've ever seen, and Patty is a lovely lady. Please give her my best.
I will. I definitely will. And boy, I'll tell you, I'm just so blessed to be part of this on Wednesdays and Fridays. The show that's sweeping the country. Next time I get on, I'll make sure I get a clean shirt from my wife.
Yeah, do that, Mark, because I'm going to get kicked off Facebook if you come in like this again. I know. So,
you get away with an awful lot on Facebook these days. So.
Mark, thanks for being on again. We'll talk to you soon.
God bless you all, and have a good show the rest of the way, my friends. Nice meeting you, Larry.
Nice to meet you, Mark.
Bye-bye. All right, Larry, welcome. Larry Sorensen again, Wake Forest color analyst. The red hot Demon Deacons. Let's just start there, Larry. I mean, tell me about this hot start for this Wake Forest team. I know they're deep in I should say they're experienced. Give us your take of this first first quarter of the season, whatever we're looking at.
Well, obviously when you start with Norfolk State and Old Dominion, there are a couple of games that you expect to win. Sure. And they did, and they won them handily. And the first game in particular, a couple of things showed up that you get worked out. The second game's a little bit cleaner. You make some strides. Then Florida State, nobody really knows what to expect from Florida State. And Wake Forest smoked them pretty good and dominated that game. And then the big surprise was Virginia last Friday night. Wake went up there, and Virginia had been 19-2 in their last 21 home games. And Wake Forest really dominated the game physically, dominated the game statistically, both sides of the ball and in the special teams.
Yeah, I watched that game, and that's a tough place to play, as you said. Well-coached football team, too, and it's not a bad team. So that's a great win, I think, to springboard.
A team that scored 39 points against North Carolina the week before, and they do it in a lot of different ways. They've got a lot of different moving parts going on in their offense in particular, and so Wake Forest was really prepared. And I said this to Dave Clausen after practice. I said it looked like your team at times was more ready for the play to be run than Virginia was for them to run their own play, because they did a terrific job in preparation, in film study, and in everything else. So a complete win. And then you go to a Louisville team this weekend that, with the exception of one quarter, the first quarter of the season, they were outplayed badly. they've won every other quarter that they've played. So should be a really good game in Winston-Salem this weekend.
Who would have thought at this point of the season, 4 games in, that we'd be talking about Wake Forest, Louisville, NC State battling for the Atlantic lead in the ACC, and Clemson isn't really in the conversation. Is Clemson done? I think they're going to lose this week at BC myself.
Well, and let's not forget BC, who is undefeated as well.
Yeah, I didn't get down there. They haven't played a league game yet, but this is their first league game. I think they're going to beat Clemson this weekend. I really do.
You know, you know me, Keith. I'm old school, and I keep thinking that the powerhouse teams are going to find a way to be a powerhouse again. Now, this leads to a great discussion, and we've seen it all over the sports pages and all over the media and everything else. What do we like better? Do we like it when it's Clemson, Ohio State, Alabama, and whoever? Or do we like the fact that a Wake Forest team has a chance to win the Atlantic and maybe play Pitt in the conference championship? You know, is that something? And it seems to me like the fans are having a hard time getting their head around what might be a new little era right now in college football. What do you think?
You know what? I like upstarts. I really do. I like to find, I'm a Hurricane fan because of marriage and my stepson doing his undergrad there. And I do root for them. But in college, I've always gravitated towards the best stories of the year, right? Mm-hmm. Not necessarily a bandwagon jumper. I like good stories, and college football gives you more good stories than any sport, I think, in my mind. And I think there's a lot of great stories. I think your team, Wake Forest, a great story. BC potentially is going to be a great story. And then you got the disappointments in that league, like Clemson, and North Carolina is just a mess. What's going on there?
Well, you know, it's really hard to tell what exactly is going on there because they came in with such high expectations in the top 10 to start the season, and everybody predicting them to be one of the top teams in the conference, and it has all fallen apart a little bit for them. They lost an awful lot of guys to the NFL, and you know their running game in particular, although they've been able to run the ball fairly well. You know, and again, there are so many great stories going on as far as what effect did COVID have on this year? What effect is COVID going to have on the next 2 or 3 years? How do you plan your rosters? And I think what we're finding is that different coaches are handling it better than some other coaches. You know, Wake Forest, again, back to that team, Miles Fox, one of their starting defensive tackles, is a 7th-year player, a transfer from Old Dominion. And he was banged up, didn't play last week, will play this week. But they replaced him with Suleiman Kamara, who is a 6th-year player.
Yeah.
You know? So what has that done? But also, how much experience are your young guys getting during this run as well? And where's it going to leave you for the next few years? So I think it's really, you know, it was such an unfortunate situation, and it was such a crappy college football season last year. And I generally don't refer it to crappy as crappy. I generally go much deeper than that. But I respect your show and you, Keith. So,
well, worse has gotten through because I don't have a beeper, a blooper button, but
just as a matter, a little bit on the side. Did you see what Pedro Martinez said the other day about umpires?
I don't think I did.
There was a pitcher balking, very obviously, and they happened to mention that he had never been called for a balk in his career. And Pedro went much deeper than the crappy that I referred to on the MLB network. So made me laugh.
That's pretty funny stuff. Gosh, you got me off track. I forgot what I was going to say. Yeah, I was talking about the super seniors. What's funny is we've talked about these super seniors, the 6 years and even in some cases 7. I don't think overall, I don't know that they've had the positive effect that some of these teams thought they'd have. De'Aaron King in Miami, they're not having the type of season that they thought they'd have with him coming back. And I'm sure there's a bunch of other examples I could come up with if I thought about it for a minute, but it feels like they're not having that type of impact And as you said, maybe they're impacting the growth of some of the younger guys.
Possibly stunting the growth of some guys, entirely possible. Wake Forest case, they have 5 guys on defense that are starting that are super seniors. So it really has helped them out. And including, and this is one of kind of the neat stories that happens within a team and within, the college football world. A fellow that, because of necessity on the team, Luke Masterson, had been playing safety. And for the last couple of years, the defensive group felt he would be a better linebacker than safety, but because of team needs, they needed him on the back end. And so he played safety. Well, this year, as a super senior, they said, put on the weight, get yourself bulked up in the weight room. You're going to play in the NFL as a linebacker, and we're going to give you the year to do it. And we'll go with some of our other young people on the backside. And when you see stories like that, the individual cases where it affects the team and the player and it all works out, it's really the feel-good thing that makes you keep coming back.
Who in the ACC? I mean, we know where we are now, and I guess it's not even the midpoint. I mean, heck, the conference season is just getting underway, really. I mean, it's college football season goes so fast; it's like a blur. But who do you see? I mean, we talked about Clemson's struggles and some of the teams that are doing well, and North Carolina's struggles, and some of the teams that are doing well. Is there somebody that you can see making a late run here that's gotten off and struggled a little bit in the beginning?
Well, you addressed it a little bit too when you said that they hadn't played a conference game yet.
Yeah.
Because of the way that the schedules are set up, Wake Forest is 2-0. BC hasn't played a conference game, and so it really. I'm not a big scoreboard watcher until we get last part of October. And in baseball, when I played baseball, I wasn't a big scoreboard watcher till we got, pretty deep into August as well. Because no matter what you do, you've just got to win that day. And Dave Clausen said today on his show, he said, win today and everything will be fine and we'll worry about tomorrow. And that's it. Take care of your own business and see what happens. But because there are so many variables and it's a jumbled season again, I don't play a lot of scenarios. I think as far as teams that you want to look at in the ACC, North Carolina State certainly is a team with a lot of great athletes. Always have had a lot of terrific players. Now, I will say that the game with Wake Forest this season is at Wake Forest, which somebody referred to as the haunted house for NC State. They've had a hard time coming up here. I think when you look in the other division, you look at a Pitt team that if they get on track, they've got a terrific quarterback and they can really do some damage to you. And so that's a team that I would keep my eye on.
Games played yet, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And so I think that's a team that you keep your eye on the other side.
Interestingly, the Hurricanes haven't played in a conference game either. They go to they bring Central Connecticut in for a 70-point win last week. I mean, these guys, I don't get. I mean, I understand why the Central Connecticut's of the world do it for the payday, but I mean, who's other than that? Who's benefiting from these games?
What you hope is that your number 3 and 4 guys on the depth chart get some plays and get your young guys get accustomed to the speed of major college football so that possibly they can help you with depth a little bit later on down the line. But you're right. Nobody likes to attend those. Although I will say my sister at the University of Michigan used to really enjoy watching Bo Schembechler and those groups run it up back in the day.
Until Appalachian State came in and beat them.
Oh, you had to go there.
Before I get to Rick's question, Rick wanted to say, hey, Larry, congratulations on the big win last week. And he also asked, talking about the super seniors, how will being a 7-year player affect a player's draft position? That's actually a pretty good question.
It's a terrific question. And it's something that we actually talked to Miles Fox about, not on the air. But in his particular case, he'd been injured a couple of seasons during that time. And so this is an opportunity for him to really show the NFL scouts what he can do over a prolonged period of time. And he got nicked up a little bit again, as those big guys will in the middle when you get rolled on and whatever. But, in his particular situation, it's a great opportunity to get 12 more games in to show the NFL guys exactly what you can do.
Yeah, agreed. Let me just tell James one more time. James, I'll help you out on this Mississippi Rice game because I know it's a huge matchup. We'll talk about it after Larry's segment. I didn't forget you. I promise you. We'll get to that. We'll get to that game.
Well, Rice is always an interesting team because we follow at Wake Forest. We follow the Rices and the Vanderbilts and
let's help
those kinds of teams.
On this pick. He needs help on this Southern Miss +3 against Rice.
Well, I stay away from making those picks because somebody might be able to find me.
Well, I find you. If I can find you, anybody can find you. I'll give you a solid pick later, James. I promise. Not sure how, but Southern Miss got waxed by Alabama last week. I know that, and Rice has been getting waxed by pretty much everybody. So that's an interesting. If that's where you're my my suggestion, James, before we get to that, and I'll get back to Larry, I promise, is don't bet that game at all.
There you go.
So, Dave Guyette, good evening. Dave Guyette's here. Dave Guyette's a Syracuse fan. Let's talk a little bit quickly about Syracuse because we got a lot of fans that follow the show here. They've struggled this year, offensively especially. Had a good first half defensively against Rutgers and then fell back in the second half. But they had a really nice win against a good Liberty team last week. Any hope for this Syracuse team as the season moves on?
Well, Syracuse is one of those teams that you really don't like to see on the schedule, and Wake Forest goes up there next weekend and will play in the Dome, which is always an unusual place to play. And when you watch the kids get off the bus and walk into the stadium in the morning, it's kind of like the Hoosiers when they walk into the arena in Indianapolis and take a look up there in the rafters and everything. It's new and it's different and it's loud. And it's a peculiar place, and I'm a huge Dino Babers fan. I watch the coaches' press conferences on Monday. I take a look at the coach that Wake Forest just played. I take a look at the coach that they're playing next, and I watch Dino because he's a guy I say to myself, I'd run through a wall for this guy. I could play for him. And I know he's losing some fan appeal up there in Syracuse. It's been rough. But I've got confidence in them, and they're a scary team to play.
Yeah, I think it would be a huge mistake for them to chase him off at this point. I mean, it's a tough place right now to recruit for a lot of reasons, but the guy's a good coach, and I think if he finds some consistent quarterback play, they may actually be able to turn that thing around up there.
And injuries have played a part in that struggle as well. And when you're looking at the most important guy on the field and he keeps getting banged up and you're trying to do different things, it's great to talk about depth. But when you get a skill player at that position that can lead your team the way that they've had some guys and then get beat up, it makes it rough.
Yeah, let's get back to your Wake Forest team for just a few minutes before you got to run. And I do appreciate your time as always, Larry. You got Louisville this week. You get by there, man. You're going to Syracuse, but again, you're in a position to win that game. You got Army, a tough Army team, by the way.
Yeah, how about Army?
Army is Jeff Mockton is just one of the best coaches in the country in my mind. To do what he's done at Army the last 4 or 5 years is amazing.
Did I see that they did not have a passing yard last week?
I believe that's accurate. Yeah.
And obviously, Wake Forest goes up there after the bye week. Now, a little connection there as well. The athletic director at Army is a former Wake Forest athlete and an associate AD who actually was Kevin Costner's stunt double in For Love of the Game, as I see your New York Yankee jacket on there. He filled in for Kevin Costner some during that movie and helped him with his throwing. And we're looking forward to going up there. My son's going to come meet me, a former Detroit Tiger minor league player, and really looking forward to that weekend.
Excellent. We talked. I think we might have talked about this a couple of weeks ago. But have you been to Army?
I have not.
What a great experience! You're going to love it.
I have not been to any of the military academies, and I'm really, really looking forward to it. My son lives in Brooklyn. He's going to shoot up, and I'm going to get in there to see my grandson into New York for a little bit. So it's going to be a big weekend.
Yeah, you're going to love the game day experience for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, the way I look at this schedule, I mean, again, I hate to put the hex on your Demon Deacons.
You're trying the broadcaster jinx thing? Is that what you got going?
Trying not to, but you get a chance to go to Carolina 8-0, I'm thinking. And that's could be a huge game. So and then you're going to get Clemson later in the year. I guess you probably wish you'd played them now, probably, but
you never know. And again, just one or two key injuries, and they've already had a couple. But you get into their depth, and they're the team that loses the guys to the pros, and they leave early. And sure, they've got all these guys on the bench, and you anticipate they're going to move right in, but it takes a while for that all to develop. So we'll see down the road before too long. And as you said earlier, it sure does go by in a hurry.
It does. Let me ask you this. Is the ACC got any chance at this point of getting a team in consideration for the playoff with the way the league is? And again, we're early in league play, obviously, as we said, but it's hard to move up. That's why I hate polls.
It is hard to move up. And again, I guess, Keith, that leads to the question of, are they all bad teams in the ACC, or have teams gotten better because of the unusualness of the COVID situation? When you look around the country, there's a number of surprise teams out there that have jumped out, and you've got a small amount of the powerhouses that still are powerful. You've got a equal amount of powerhouses that have fallen off the radar a little bit, the Clemson type teams. Yeah. So I don't think that it's fair at this point to say that because Wake Forest and Boston College are undefeated, the ACC is just a really, really down conference this year. I just don't think that that's fair. I'm not sure that there are enough opportunities left to change people's minds.
Yeah, that's my point, is that, it's not so much, I'm certainly not belittling the conference, because I think these teams are really good teams, as I've said before. And I just think, again, that's the problem with rating these teams before the season's even played a game, and you just can't make it up. I mean, BC started out of the top 25. Wake obviously started out of the top 25. North Carolina State, all these teams that we've talked about weren't even ranked when the season started. So,
well, I mean, I'm not sure exactly what you make of it when we start making bold predictions the day after the last one ends. We start making bold predictions for and because people read it, watch it, believe it, and someplace along the line, fiction becomes truth. Perception is reality. And when the theme is repeated often enough, people start believing it. And I think that affects the whole process some as well. And when you have teams that are not your traditional really good teams, like a Wake Forest or a Boston College, people have a hard time taking them seriously. But when you watch the games, all of a sudden you say, gee, that's a really good football team out there.
I agree. And look at, if somebody, I don't know, gosh, Wake Forest, NC State, somebody runs the table and Clemson recovers and goes, with to the ACC championship game with a couple losses, and that team from the Atlantic beats Clemson convincingly. Well,
or let's say that Wake Forest runs the table, goes 12-0, and let's say that Clemson wins every game but Wake Forest, and Wake Forest beats Clemson by a couple touchdowns. All of a sudden, we've restored Clemson to a little bit of their perch towards the elite of the nation. And if Wake Forest goes into Clemson, beats them there, does that help their credibility? So that's why I don't do too many scenarios, Keith.
I got you. Look,
I'm not that smart to figure it all out that far down the road.
That was a big scenario you gave me right there. That was a big one. Look at your Wake. I'm going to congratulate you again on your Wake. They moved up 14 spots to get into the top 25 at the coaches poll this week. So look at, anything can happen, and I'm rooting for them. Since my Hurricanes really stink, I'm going to become a Deacons fan.
Don't count the Hurricanes out, though. They're going to hurt somebody's feelings really badly someplace along the way. The rest of
they haven't played a conference game either. Yeah, there's 4 teams in that Coastal haven't played a conference game yet. It's very disjointed in a way. So
we'll see what happens.
Look, I appreciate you coming in, Larry. Once we got a couple more weeks under our belt, we'll grab you again. And I do appreciate the time that you give us when you do come in, and you offer a lot of insight on the ACC for sure.
Always a pleasure. Always a pleasure, Keith. Reach out anytime.
Can't wait to talk to you after that Army experience. I can tell you that. So
that'll be fun. There's going to be some good baseball coming up here in the next couple of weeks too.
There is. Your Brewers are going to be tough.
They are tough. Cardinals now have won 17 in a row. My former Cardinals, my former Brewers. We could go on and on. My former Giants.
You played on all the good teams. All right, Larry. Thanks again.
Have a great night.
Good luck this weekend.
Thank you.
Bye-bye. Larry Sorensen, color analyst for Wake Forest. And they are having a great start, as we said. Just getting in the top of the bottom of the coaches poll. But as far, it might as well be the top, guys. We should be just starting to rank teams now. Oh gosh. Anyway, we got a couple of Rick. I did miss this comment. I had to put it up there a couple of times. It's very, it's very funny. And I think when you're talking about PTI, you're talking about Kornheiser and Wilbon talking about Cuse is 2 years away from being 2 years away. Is that? Hopefully, I've got the right. And I do see that you had seen Tony Dorsett and Pitt against Army as youngster. That had to be a lot of fun. That was a great Pittsburgh team that won national championship in '76. If I have the year right, not sure. Guys, what time we got? 8:10. Let me take a couple of quick. Let's just take a look at the top, the coaches' top 25, and I just wanted to look at some of the big movers and droppers from last week. James, I'm going to get to your game. I promise you. PTI. Rick says, yup to PTI. Great show. You know, I don't get to see it much anymore. I probably should DVR it because I love the show. Some of the big movers and droppers this week. Some of Arkansas up 7 this week, all the way to number 11. They were out of the top 25 until last week, guys. So you can move up these polls pretty fast. And again, as I said, we're going to move to the playoff pool once that comes out, because it's going to be more germane to what we talk about. Notre Dame jumped 3 spots, going by Cincinnati, who again stands still, cannot seem, they've had 4 or 5 teams pass them this year. Michigan jumps 5, but I think Michigan loses this week. Michigan State jumps 5. Even though they struggled against not a good Nebraska team, but they're playing tougher. I think Nebraska's finding an identity, and now they just need to learn how to win. They've given 2 really, well, by the polls, at least, good football teams a tough time. Fresno State jumps 4. Baylor with an 18-point jump from nowhere all the way to 24. So they were 42 last week. Wake Forest, we talked about a minute ago, up 4. Big losers, Clemson drops 12, and probably shouldn't even be in the poll in my mind. And I can't read my writing. Who dropped 8? Somebody dropped 8 spots here. Oh gosh, where are you? Downs. Clemson dropped 12. There we go. Texas A&M drops 8 spots to 13 from 5. Tough loss for A&M. They're going to have a tough time climbing back up that rung, guys. They really are. Let's take a quick look at the schedule this week and see the games we didn't talk about so far, and I'll give you some winners and losers, including Southern Miss at Rice, James. James, welcome to the show, by the way. I'm only kidding with you. I seriously would not bet this game if I were you, but let's take a quick look at that game. Rice, let me find their conference first so I can give you some kind of help me find their league there. James, speak up, buddy. I know they play somewhere. By the way, Southern Miss got waxed by Alabama last week. I know they are not that good. Here we go. Southern Miss is 1-3, been outscored by 50 points this year. Not seeing much happen in there. Rice has been outscored by 102 points. They're 1-3. If Southern, I'm going to say again, don't bet this game, James, but if you got to bet somebody, take the home team. And I'm going to assume that's Ole Miss, but let's see where it is when we get to the schedule here. Let me go through the top 20. Oh, gosh, let me go to your game. Let me go to your game, bud. See if I can find it quick. We want to find Rice. Where's that game? You commenting here, James? Did I lose you, buddy? Conference USA. Yeah, I found him. I just need to know where the game's being played. I'm betting the home team in that game. If Ole Miss is giving up 3 on the road, take Rice. Yeah, they're at Rice. Guys, James, I'll go on a limb and say take Rice. I will tell you, I would not be putting my money on that game. But maybe you got a good reason. Or maybe you're busting my chops. Which I hope you are. All right. Hang on, guys. I'm getting... All right, let's look at some other games. My Miami Hurricanes are playing Virginia at home. First league game for the Hurricanes. I like the Hurricanes in this game. Bryce, tough. Or I'm sorry, Bryce. You got see, James. Look what you've done to me. Welcome to the show, by the way, James. The Hurricanes got to win a game. Virginia with a tough loss last week to Wake at home, and I think Miami's starting to get it together. And they need to. They haven't played a conference game, so they got to. If they're going to salvage this season and get a decent bowl game and have some reason for Derek King to have come back to school for a 6th year, they need to get on track and probably make that ACC championship game somehow. Tulsa, Houston. I'm gonna like Houston in that game. Maryland, Iowa, we already talked about. I do like Maryland in that game. BYU, we like. Rick, your Georgia team could very well be number 1 after this week. I think there's going to be an upset in one of these games. Arkansas, Georgia, Ole Miss, Alabama. I think your Georgia team is going to get to number 1 because I think there's a chance Ole Miss, everything's got to go perfect for them, don't get me wrong, could knock off Alabama. I see Michigan losing at Wisconsin. I don't care about the Tennessee-Missouri game. Look at Tennessee. I know Carlos talks him up. Even he was talking trash about him last Saturday night, saying the T was for trash. What other games we got? Carolina's got a rebound against Duke. Carolina's just a mess, guys. 2-2. The defense is atrocious. They got beat by 2 touchdowns last week at Georgia Tech. Not a good football team. Minnesota, very up and down against Purdue, who's 3-1. Gosh, that's a tough one, too. I'll probably take the home team there. Texas plays TCU. TCU, without losing to their arch rival SMU last week. I'm going to have to take Texas here, though. I think Texas has now hit another gear since they got beat by Arkansas. Steve Scarsazian's got something going there. He may have found his quarterback. We'll see what happens, but I like Texas over TCU here. Memphis, after got a tough loss last week after beating Mississippi State in stunning fashion, plays Temple. I'm going to like Memphis there. We talked about Louisville and Wake. I'm going to take Wake Forest here because I'm rooting for my friend Lary Sorensen's team, but Louisville's cannot be taken lightly. USC, Colorado. USC is a mess. How this team can have 2 losses. This is like taking a Ferrari and driving it off-road. You know, they got to blow it up over there and do something. My lock for the week was Cincinnati going to Notre Dame and beating Notre Dame. Let's see what other games we got of interest. I like Ole Miss to have a chance here in this game against Alabama. It's all about whether they can stop Alabama. This game could go up and down the field, and if they can get 2 stops, they might have a chance. You didn't put a bet out there for Mark. He will need some new corporate sponsors. Rick, you play your cards right. Keep betting in Double or Nothing, and he will have to buy you a Philly cheesesteak franchise in Philly probably when he gets his show started out there. Oregon and Stanford. Oregon's got to be very careful here in this game. And Oregon is probably the Pac-12's last chance for a playoff spot. Oklahoma, Kansas State. Kansas State, kind of been up and down. Oklahoma State's a team I like to really maybe make a surprise run here. They're undefeated. They beat K-State last week at home. Watch out for Oklahoma State. We'll get to that game in a little bit. Ohio State at Rutgers. I didn't talk about this game with Mark when we were looking ahead. I liked Rutgers last week to stay in the game against Michigan. I had said they will have the ball in the fourth quarter with a chance to win the game. They had a ball in the fourth quarter, a chance to win the game. They lost by 7. They get Ohio State at home. Could be a bit of a letdown. We'll see what happens here. I hope they can keep this game close. I don't know the teams 3 games I'll be betting this weekend. I always bet 3 college and 3 pros. And I'll maybe do my picks on TGI Sports Talk's webpage so you guys know who I take. Syracuse, Florida State. You know what? Syracuse could actually get to 4-1 here. Florida State's a mess. Mike Norvell may not survive this. We're going to talk about it more, I think, next week. Maybe Mark and I when we do the show. What's happened to Florida? Florida used to dominate. They always had 3 teams in the polls, sometimes in the top 10. Miami, Florida, Florida State. My theory is these kids don't stay home. Florida is one of the most fertile recruiting areas in the country. But these kids are going to Alabama. They're going to Georgia. They're going to Ole Miss. They're going to LSU. They're not staying home and going to Florida State and Miami. Florida's still holding their own, but they play in the SEC. So could be tough for Florida State to rebound. I think Syracuse has got a decent chance if they put some points up to win that game. We're getting to the Army. We're getting to the military academies here in a second, Rick, by the way. Texas Tech, after getting just hammered by Texas last week, go to West Virginia. I think West Virginia will rebound with a win here. Navy 0-3 against UCF. No chance. Sorry, midshipman fans. I love to root for Navy and always have. Army and Navy both. But Navy's just in a bad spot. They'll get it back together. Ken, whose last name I'll never be able to pronounce, is just too good a coach for this to continue more than a couple seasons. Who else do I like here? Interesting game. Nevada at Boise State's kind of an interesting game out west. South Florida at SMU. South Florida is no good. SMU's 5-0. SMU has got a chance to get to a Cincinnati game undefeated. And SMU is, again, another really good team ranked outside of top 25. Now just trying to move up the polls. It's very hard to do. We have seen teams do it in the past. But it's possible that you could see a Cincinnati SMU winner playing for a playoff spot when they get to that conference championship game. It's possible. Army's going to visit a tough Ball State team. They're not having as good a year as they did last year, and I would think Army would win this game as well. You got Washington State going to California. I can't, Mickey. Sorry, I can't pick Washington State here. They're kind of a disaster. I'll take Cal. Florida and Kentucky, another game. Florida at Kentucky. This is a game Florida needs to be careful. Kentucky's really well coached by Stoops. Mark Stoops. Couldn't remember his first name earlier. Great running game. Great defense. Kentucky's going to be in position to win this game in the fourth quarter. Whether they do is up in the air, but they'll be in position to win this game. NC State gets a good Louisiana Tech team. Got to be careful about a letdown after beating Clemson last week. Big surprise in the American Conference, the American Athletic Conference, the AAC, the league that I love. Not the ACC, Carlos. I know you're not here tonight, but the AAC, UTSA. Texas San Antonio, 4-0. another team to keep an eye on here. They'll win easy against UNLV. Southern Miss and Rice. I gave you your winner, Jeff. You haven't. Did I say your name right? Was it Jeff? James. Sorry, James. I hope you're kidding me and you're not betting that game, but I'll take Rice in this game. Just so I've got to pick. Air Force against New Mexico. Air Force 3-1. Tough to go on the road in this league and win, but I'm going to like Air Force in this game. Texas A&M got to bounce back against a game Mississippi State team. I don't know that they're ready to compete in the SEC yet. I would see Texas A&M bouncing back in this game. Very interesting game in the Big 12 that I didn't get to with Mark. Baylor at Oklahoma State. Baylor with a big signature win against Iowa State last week. I can see Oklahoma State winning this game, but it being very, very, very close. I think Oklahoma State might be the team to watch out for as a late comer to the party there in the Big 12. Middle Tennessee, sorry, Carlos, no good. Liberty looking to bounce back against UAB. UAB playing well at 3-1. Iowa State will rebound in a big way against Kansas. Penn State should handle Indiana, who's a big disappointment this year after the really good season last year. I said earlier, Boston College will beat Clemson. Don't be surprised if Boston College beats Clemson. Boston College is really good, well coached, good quarterback, and they got what it takes. They got to win on the road, though, to be able to do that. Northwestern Nebraska. Maybe Nebraska gets over the top here for a change. They're starting to change that culture. As I said, they're starting to get an identity that they didn't have. And now they just need to learn how to win. And this could be where they win against a decent Northwestern team. Auburn and LSU. LSU's playing well at 3-1, trying to rebound. Their only loss to UCLA on the road. Not a horrible loss. James, I already talked about Middle Tennessee just needs some coaching. They should fire all their coaches, Rick. James, I talked about this game ad nauseum. Take Rice and the points at home. But please don't bet the game at all. Bad idea. Auburn at LSU. Auburn 22. I still don't know what to make about Auburn. I'm going to like LSU at home here. UCLA, Arizona State. Big game for both of those two teams to try to take the driver's seat to the Pac-12 championship game against Oregon, assuming they stay there. And then you got Fresno State going out to Hawaii. Hawaii's always tough at home, but this is a good Fresno State. What else you got here? I like UCLA -3 against ASU here, James. That was my pick. If you weren't with us earlier in the season, they were my surprise pick to crash the playoff party, and that came crashing down with their loss to Fresno State. But this is still a good UCLA team, 20th in the country, very good at home, except against Fresno State. And I think Chip Kelly's got it going there. So no problem, James. You don't need to apologize. You probably stepped away to do something else. I don't expect people to stay here for an hour and a half and listen to me ramble on about nothing. So, James, I would take your money and bet UCLA -3 against Arizona State. I would save your money in that Southern Miss Rice game. One thing, James, if you want to speak up, I hope you do. It looks like you again. You want another pick? Washington. Oh man, that's a tough game too. Oh, where's that game being played, dude? I'm going to give you a pick. We got a couple minutes left here. I got to wrap it up, but I'll give you a pick in this game just because I want to keep you as a viewer and see if I make you some money. But if you lose, don't come looking to me to pay. That's all I can tell you. Let's see. Washington's at Oregon State. Oh, you know what? I like Oregon State in this game. I'll be honest with you. They're getting 3 at home against a Washington team that's struggling. I gotta like Oregon State in this game. They're playing pretty well. They're 3-1. I'm getting home points in a game that's not. I figured that out. And you want? What do you want? Killing me, James. I'd have to take the home dog in this game just because similar to what I said against Rice, although these two teams are a little bit better than Rice and Southern Miss. So I'm glad we could help you out there. Listen, guys, I want to thank Mark Mancini for his input today, coming on every Wednesday night. And I want to thank Lary Sorensen, who comes in here every couple of weeks to talk about the ACC and Wake Forest. What's Rick got for me? No hurry. Yankees down 4-1 in the fifth. Ugh. Coming back, Rick. You ruined my college football show with a baseball score. Anyway, thanks to Lary Sorensen. Good luck to his Wake Forest teams. Good luck to James in your picks this weekend. Please stay away from that Southern Miss Rice game. We'll be back next Wednesday night. I'll be talking to you guys. I got to talk to you about what I'm going to try to do when I'm on vacation and away. We're going to try to do something if I have a connection, a strong enough signal to stream from the cruise ship. So we'll be here next Wednesday. Guys, join me Friday for TGI Sports Talk interview show. I have Tommy John, former Yankee, Well, thank you, Shannon. I'm glad you're here watching. It's good to have you with us. Please share and invite your friends to TGI Sports Talk. Tommy John will be my guest on Friday. We just did the interview tonight before this show, and Tommy's quite a character, man. You talk about a stream of consciousness. We were all over the place, but Tommy was a great guest, and we'll see you Sunday for a stream of consciousness. Keep it going. TGI Sports Talk right here on Northeast Streaming Sports Network. We will see you next Wednesday. I can't wait. Have a great night.
This is a presentation of Northeast Streaming Sports.